Hey there. So we've got the new moon in Taurus on Saturday, 16th of May, 2026. And what I wanted to do in this video is to pace you through all of the prevalent planetary patterns and pictures that I can see, sort of talk you through what they mean. Also have a look at the Sabian symbol for this particular new moon, and also have a look at the asteroids or transneptunian objects that are really playing a part in deciphering the energies for the next 2 weeks. You see, although the new moon will come and it will go quite quickly, I think the degree that the new moon happens at, and also the degree that the full moon happens at, and also eclipses, they're really special degrees. They're critical degrees, and these degrees kind of play out over the next couple of weeks until the next one that comes along, which will be the full moon. So this is to describe the moment of the new moon, but what unfolds straight after. So if you're new to this channel, by the way, my name's Louisa. Welcome to Feel Good Astrology. Hope you enjoy it. So let's get cracking. Let's have a look. Now, there's a couple of, obviously, if you've been listening to this channel before, you'll know that there's a load of very exciting things that are happening this year. We've got some very, very new patterns coming in that we haven't had before. And I'll be talking more about those specific patterns in other episodes. But one thing that I do notice that's coming up 2 days after this new moon, and that is we've got a Mercury in a conjunction to Uranus. Now, this is the first time they have come together in Gemini since I think 1948. So a really, really, really long time. I've been looking at the patterns of it, whilst Uranus is in the sign of Gemini, every year when Mercury makes a conjunction with Uranus, it's going to be in the sign of Gemini. Now, this is significant because both Mercury and Uranus are very much head planets. Mercury is the terrestrial thought, the terrestrial communication. It's really about how information and things move. So when I think of Gemini, yes, I think about what we're communicating, what we're thinking, but I also think about the movement of services and goods. Mercury is a market person. He's also a bit of a trickster, but Mercury really moves things around very quickly. So he's the mail delivery. He is absolutely, especially in the sign of Gemini, which is so social and so interconnected. Mercury here is super important. And, Uranus newly ingressed into the sign of Gemini for the rest of its duration. This is going to have a huge impact on all of our goods and services, all of our electricity, our power, the things that power us up and enable us to communicate with each other, and also to order things and buy things and sell things. So this conjunction is going to be, I think, pretty important leading up to whatever else ensues around the world. There are some really, really big patterns. And, the way I look at astrology is nothing ever happens in isolation. So it's never just one aspect that starts off this kind of ball rolling. And, we've got a lot of things building behind the scenes right now, and for quite a long time. So we've got Pluto building into this trine with Uranus. Now, they've already been in a trine for months, and they're going to continue being in a trine for a good couple of years, but they are coming into an exact trine in the next couple of months. So this is a very, rare aspect to come in, and it's in the air signs. Now, I've been tracking this, and I will be talking about this in a separate video, the Pluto-Uranus trines in air and what happens technologically, scientifically, with our belief systems, with knowledge, universities, all things like that. I've traced it right the way back through the millennium, and beyond. I got back as far as 600 AD, and then I thought, you know what, we haven't had this pattern before, in recorded history, in history that we might be able to understand. So this has been building for quite some time, and I want to unpack that. But when Mercury makes its exact conjunction on Monday the 18th, that's really going to be pinging into action this Pluto and Uranus trine. Now, why is this significant? Well, it is significant because these two are rare, and then Mercury conjunct Uranus is the first one in Gemini for however many years it is, like 80 years. But the most significant thing is this is happening right after a new moon, and both of them are in a conjunction with this new moon. So it's a pretty big deal. So yeah, we've got the new moon in Taurus. So let's just talk about the new moon. The new moon is a new start. It's the opportunity for us to have cleared the decks, you know, which is what a new moon does. I'm recording this a couple of days before on the 14th. And right now it's so dark at night because the moon is just this tiny little crescent and it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And this is the time when we absolutely need to trust our instincts, go deep inside when we're not feeling quite so full of energy. I actually had a little nap this afternoon, you know, so we don't have quite as much available energy. We're wanting to slow down and we're really going into this sort of intuitive, magical place. And it's a time to kind of let go of as much as possible so that we have got this beautiful blank space to create from. And so we're coming into this very special new moon in the sign of Taurus. Now, Taurus, it's the second sign of the zodiac. It's associated with comfort. You know, Taurians, you know, this is a planet ruled by Venus, so it wants comfort. It wants to have all of its senses feasted upon. It wants to feast upon things, sorry. You know, like, you know, Venus is absolutely soft and gentle and colorful and beautiful. And, you know, she connects, she relates to things. She helps us to relate to people. She helps us to relate to situations and understand things. So she's very important. And, you know, Venus also shows us our values to some extent. She shows us what we really value, what we attach to, what we're in love with, what we fall for, what we're attracted to. So this is an attractive, easygoing, gentle, natural, sensuous new moon that is wanting us to slow down. Very different from the previous new moon in Aries, which was like, come on, let's go get it. You know, it was, you know, very strong with the Mars and Aries energy. This is absolutely honoring that Taurus connection, you know, to slow down, to embody, to ground, and to be as nourishing as possible. Taurus is an earth sign. It really loves things that are fresh and wholesome and healing, but also they have to taste good and look good too. So yeah, this new moon is taking us back to first principles without the unnecessary fluff. It might be comfortable, it might be attractive, but it doesn't need to be gaudy or overdone, overdressed. It wants to be simple and yeah, really as natural as possible. You know, Taurus is a fixed sign as well, so it is the slowest of all the earth signs. You know, this is absolutely about taking it at a really good pace. It's fixed, it's rooted. So how can you find your slow, grounded roots right now? And what might you choose to bring forwards in your life from a rooted and grounded and fixed perspective? So that's a, you know, a really big question. Now, we've also got this in a conjunction with Ceres. Now, Ceres is all about the earth. Ceres is also known as Demeter in Greek mythology. She is the goddess of the earth and the harvest. I think of her as a Mother Earth kind of character. You know, she helps us find our natural rhythms in terms of spring, summer, autumn, and winter. She and her daughter Persephone, you know, they were very happy, like watching, you know, the growth of the cereals and, you know, the trees. She was making sure that everything was managed. You know, Ceres is very much a micromanager. Like, she knows the cycles of the flowers blooming, the bulbs coming up, things coming into blossom. You know, she's in with all of those cycles and making sure that everything is just right, just so. And in the story, she lost Persephone. She was allegedly kidnapped, possibly ran away because her mum was a bit over attentive. You know, and she went into the underworld. That's where she was found, and she was with, you know, living a sort of darker existence underground with Hades, aka Pluto. So I've got hair on my mic. And, you know, she was experiencing a very sort of different pace of life. Now, the story goes that Persephone was unable to return Earthside because she'd eaten half of the fruit of the pomegranate. I think it's called the fruit of the dead. And so it was deemed that she needed to spend half her time underground and half over. And so, to cut a long story short, you know, every time when Persephone went underground, all of a sudden all the stuff like shriveled and died, and we went into autumn and winter. And then when Persephone was returned to her mother, that's when all of the shoots come through, all the seeds grow, when we come into the fullness of life and, the fecundity. And so, Ceres is absolutely related to the ups and the downs and the natural flow, which ties us actually nicely into the moon, which goes, it becomes full and then it wanes and it becomes a new moon. And so we've got that continuous, like, waxing, waning kind of energy with both of them. Now, I actually think Ceres is a higher harmonic of the moon. And, if we were to follow that out and go further into the solar system and beyond, we might also link in Sedna. All three of these characters are dealing with the emotions and the psyche. And so Ceres, at her level, she's looking at how all the patterns live into our emotional system. And she also rules and regulates grief. So Ceres deals with grief in a really, really big way, the things that she can't quite control. She doesn't fully get her own way, that her daughter is with her all the time. And so she has to lose every year. She has to experience this loss, and this grief comes up, and she grieves it so in such an embodied way that we get autumn and winter. And so to me, this is interesting. We've got this new moon in Taurus, and I'm wondering, what are the cycles of grief? Is there grief that you're holding on to from another season, a time when you lost and the grief couldn't be released? To me, this is a perfect opportunity for us to purge any remaining grief that is holding us back, anywhere where we've felt that we weren't able to, like something, we didn't win something was taken from us. It really feels like the deepest of losses. Now, that's not all, because we've also, like I've also mentioned, we've got a conjunction with Mercury and Uranus. I'm going to park this and come back here actually after. I want to link this in now to Mars and Chiron, because I've already mentioned that Mercury and Uranus are coming into their first conjunction in Gemini for the first time in 80 years. But we're also coming into another kind of interesting pattern. So we've got Mars and Chiron coming into their last conjunction in the sign of Aries. Now, that is happening just a few moments before the new moon itself comes about. And this has been coming into action all week. Now, grief, Ceres is thinking about grief and natural grief, and maybe the grief of the natural world and the grief that we consider when we look at nature, or when we look at the loss of our connection to nature, maybe. But Chiron shows us where maybe we've got a wound, where we've got a vulnerability, where, when we, almost like there's something that we can't quite scratch, like a painful itch, like a wounded itch. We can't quite satisfy it. We can't get to grips with it. And in the sign of Aries, Chiron has been really loud ever since he went into Aries. So really from like 2019 onwards, there's been this very loud revelation of our wounds and our vulnerability, and where we feel vulnerable, where we feel abused. And it's really come up into popular conversation, about triggering. There's nothing more triggering than Chiron in Aries, and I'm born in the Chiron in Aries generation, so I know all about it. So Chiron has been there, and anytime a planet goes over Chiron, every year we get a little subtle reminder of something that we can't quite resolve, that's happened maybe in the past. But it's interesting, because in Aries, that's ruled by Mars, and Mars wants to take action. And this is potentially the last of a pattern. The next time Mars and Chiron come together, they're going to be in Taurus. They're going to have a very, very different energy. By that time, Chiron's going to be well ensconced in Taurus. It's not wanting to shout about its pain and cry about it and be triggered about it and make accusations about it. Because actually, by that time, Chiron can recognize that actually everyone's got pain. Everyone can be triggered by something. And we're all suffering wounds because of our interconnected lifestyle. It's almost impossible to avoid. But by the time Chiron comes here, it's much more of a practical need for healing. In the sign of Taurus, Chiron's going to be saying, well, it's not so much about who's to blame now. It's actually, okay, this is the situation. What can we do with it? And so when these guys come together next time in 2 years, there's going to be a very different result. But right now, the Chiron and Mars pattern are coming to their kind of final crescendo in the sign of Aries. So it could be a massive, you did this to me kind of blowout. Hopefully not. It could absolutely be where you're unraveling all of those kind of pain memories and getting to the core of this and really seeing what's at the core of it. Absolutely could be that. I see it, last night I was talking in my membership with some of the group. We have hangouts every couple of weeks, just specifically for the new moons and full moons. And so we were talking then, and we were tracing back the last few times that these guys have got in touch in the sign of Aries. And we all had, not all, most of us could recognize those times when Chiron and Mars had got together. And in particular, somebody had a very specific journey that at each time they came together in Mars, she took action that maybe didn't feel comfortable, but she made a decision that, okay, something has persisted. I'm now going to take this action. And then it kind of carried on for 2 years. And then there was a renewed effort and another renewed effort. And so her journey has really changed and been sculpted in many ways by this Chiron and Mars connection. I too have a bit of skin in the game. I mentioned it in my weekly forecast. I noticed a pattern with this, absolutely, that really came in strong last time. So yeah, whatever your wound is, whatever story has come up for you, it may well come up for the last time in such a big and noticeable way. And if you know what that pattern has been, and if you're already passing it, you might want to take some action to not to kind of blast it and say, no more, be gone. But you might choose to take action to honor it, to honor your sacred heart, to honor your vulnerability, to honor how innocent you have been, and also to maybe honor some of the people involved for their part in helping you recognize what needed healing. I'm not saying, thank all your abusers. That's not what I'm definitely not saying it in that way. But if you are feeling gratitude, and I do think that a new moon in Taurus, in particular with Ceres involved, and also with this sort of energy into Gemini straight after with Mercury and Uranus, it feels like we're saying goodbye to a pattern and moving into a place of comfort and looking after your practical needs, and then moving forwards with a very different kind of communication, like a new energy that you're taking out into the world. And that is this Gemini vibe here. So, I'm not saying have a great big celebration for the people in the past unless that suits you too. However, how can you honor the pattern closure that you're coming to, or the scene change? Like when you listen to one of your favorite songs, there will be a moment where there's a key change. And that's what we're going through here. We're going through a key change. So the melody has kind of reached its fever pitch and it's about to break into a new key change. And it's going to evolve in a new pattern. So this, to me, looks like a great time to honor what has been, recognize the story you've been on, not get caught in it, but recognize there's a key change and you're moving on and you're coming into a place of comfort. And again, maybe that grief will come in. Maybe you'll grieve for how beautiful your heart is, like bless your heart, because I do think, none of us stand a chance. We really don't. Life in this realm, wherever we are, life here is brutal often, whether it's emotionally, physically, spiritually. We all suffer in some way. I think that's part of life, that we experience some suffering. However, it's like what we learn from that suffering, I think, that makes us the humans we are. And this is what we're coming to right now with this new moon. This is really phenomenal. This is a real interesting time where, this Mars and Chiron energy in Aries is closing just as something new is opening up. And that is Mercury and Uranus. So just to go back to Mercury and Uranus, it is bringing us into a new era. I think it's almost like the new moon happens and a couple of days later, it's like Mercury shuts the door and says, boom, here we are. Like in our conversation last night in the hangout, to me, when we were all kind of tuning into that energy, it feels like something is going to change about, the internet or AI or the electrification of the world. Uranus is all about electricity, and Gemini reaches out with a communal level, and it's like a spider web that kind of goes on and on all around the world. And if you think of the 6 degrees of separation that we've all got, everyone kind of connecting in to this force field. I think there's going to be a huge ripple shift or something. I don't know what the term is, but to me it feels like something is coming in. And in terms of the overall shifts, this is another one of those layers that is unlocking things. If there is a super big lock that has held us all in place, we've just changed another one of those bits of that combination. It's just slotted in, and there's a few more coming up. And to me, things are all slotting into place and activating this ongoing change that we're in. I don't think there is an official start. I don't think there's an official end, but this is an evolving aspect right now, and it's getting really exciting and very new and very fast. Speaking of electricity and all of your intellectual copyright, all those things that you do, your intellectual property, I think now would be a really, really good time to download those things that are important to you and have a hard copy somewhere, because things just look like they're going to take off into air and not be grounded very much anymore. It feels like something very earthly and grounded is about to almost disappear. So yeah, if like me, you just want to keep a few things safe and secure, I would start doing that. And if you've been doing things on AI, download some of your ideas, don't lose them, because there's so much information. And I have spoken about this in my Uranus and Gemini video, how can we survive the speeding up? Because I do think it's going to have some ramifications on our nervous system. And that's why this new moon in Taurus, which is healing, grounding, and slowing us, that's important to honor. So anyway, they are the big pictures that I'm seeing. Now, if we also have a look, there we go, the Sabian symbol. So Taurus, I really like looking at the Sabian symbols on Linda Hill's website, which is sabiansymbols.com. It's really easy to use, very accessible, and it's completely free to use, and it's a real go-to place. So you find your degree that you want to look at. I picked 25 Aries and pressed find my symbol. And then it always rounds it up to the next symbol. That's how it works, always. And this one is, and they're channeled messages, very much based, a bit like tarot cards, or an angel card. There is a meaning, and you might need to extract that meaning. You might need to meditate on it a little bit, but let's have a think about what this represents. So a Spaniard serenading his senorita. This symbol speaks of being able to use one's voice, words, songs, poetry, and culture to sway the hearts and minds of others. One can sway others to achieve a desired result. There's no guarantee of success, but you must act if you want any chance of succeeding, and you might need to put your heart and soul into the performance. The worst that could be damaged is a little ego. So think positively, play your role with enthusiasm and passion. Music can lift the spirits, and words of poetry and love can be healing. Shared feelings, love, passion may result. So this is quite nice, so this new moon is also tied into love, the beginning of love, the unfolding of love, the flowering of love. It's also talking about your words and not holding back, like sharing your feelings, being in tune with another, soulmates, passing fancies, having your voice heard, knowing how to deliver a message in order to influence others to make decisions. So to me, this is really interesting. This is talking about maybe a message that's going to get spread and spread and spread and spread. So, in one way, you might want to consider, how can I share the absolute best from my heart, so that I have a message that is spreading love rather than seeding hate. When this energy goes a little bit wonky, you might see this also at the same time, because I think everything has a positive and a negative face. Not believing messages being given, insincere charades, feelings of not being listened to, spinning tales to get a response, making things up to get a response. So you might find that over the next couple of weeks, there are a lot of messages that are put out into the world consciousness, maybe through world culture, that maybe we don't think is sincere when we tune into it. Remember, this is asking us to tune in with one another. Maybe we are listening and there's something off key about it. Maybe there's a message that's been, again, spinning tails to get a response. Maybe there are some things that are not making sense and everyone's saying, hang on, that just doesn't sit right. So it's important to use your discernment here. So that's a degree that's important. And I also want to have a look at the degree for Mercury and Uranus in their first conjunction in Gemini for the first time in 80 years, because I think this is significant. And this is talking about what's going on with worldwide communications, power, delivery, all resources that get moved around the world. So we've got here, and I haven't read this, I try not to read things before I do them. I saw this one last night in my hangout, but this one is new on me. So a nervous gentleman dressed in an elaborate Santa Claus costume is filling Christmas stockings secretly. It's interesting. This symbol often describes people who are into giving gifts, dishing out good things in life to others. The question is, are you a giver or a receiver? Regardless, there are gifts given or received. Those who are giving will probably try to make it a surprise. Be gracious and accept those things you both give and receive, but realize that some could be suspecting what's really going on, as it may not always be clear what the intentions are behind the act. In fact, it can show someone sneaking around, somewhat like Santa Claus, in an effort to achieve something while no one is looking. Wishes fulfilled, longing for superficial gratification, gifts dispensed, receiving gifts from unknown sources, sudden surprises, secret affairs, quick getaways, charity. And where it might be a little bit dubious is where things are hiding, where there's a futile pretense, concealing one's true intentions, trying to get away with something, shoplifting, plundering other people's possessions, being light-fingered. That's contextual. That doesn't translate very well in British English. Just so, saying in English, in the British English language, being light-fingered just doesn't sound right. If you're a Brit, no doubt you're pissing yourself listening to this. Anyway, back to this symbol. So giving and receiving and the whole idea of Santa Claus. Interestingly, this week in my community, we've been really zeroing in on the second house and ideas on money and resources and safety and security, and also the idea of values and like being deserving of goodness, and also what happens, are we natural receivers? Are we in receivership? To me, it's a really huge thing. Now, Santa Claus always gives me the heebie-jeebies, because especially, like, I've got no problems with the idea of gifts being given because, when I feel full up with love, I feel like gifting, it feels like a really nice thing. To me, it's an extension of my good feeling. If I'm feeling good, I'm very sort of open and free. But what I really struggle with the Santa Claus story, apart from the fact that it sounds like utter BS, is, and I'm sure it's actually a symbolic story, first of all, but the Santa Claus story, it's been hijacked, I think, by moralists and parents, and no disrespect if you're one of these parents, because Lord knows we all need a lot of things to be able to cope with parenting sometimes, don't we? But the whole idea of, yes, you have to be a good girl to get a present, and if you're a bad person or if you're not kind of fitting in with the family, you're going to get a lump of coal, and that Santa Claus is always watching. To me, that gives me the heebie-jeebies, a little bit like social credit scores and things like that. I just think, stick it up your backside. I don't want to participate. I'll be the judge of me, thank you very much. Although I don't think that flies in this kind of multicultural world where we're all kind of bumping up around each other, systems do come into place. So instantly when I look at this, I'm thinking, yikes, is there a social credit score system coming in? But yeah, I do tend to, look at things and see some of the things I maybe don't want to see coming in. At the same time, the idea of a, what are they called? I can't remember the name for them. There's an actual name for the idea of everyone getting a payment, just for being alive, to help with living. Can't remember what it's called. So to me, it feels like there's about to be some communication about money coming out or money being redistributed, and what's going on, which could really fit in with a lot of the stories that are going on right now, worldwide. So I imagine that stories very much about, messages that appear to be spun to get a response, and also some kind of message about how the world's money is distributed is likely to come out at some point very soon. So interesting times. So last thing I want to do is have a look at the, and make of that what you will. I'd love to hear your theories. I want to apologize to all the people who've left comments over the last few months that I haven't responded to. I am really busy, like writing 2 books and running 2 courses at the same time as doing this. And so I haven't really given it my full attention. But if you do want to share what you think it is, I will hopefully get back to you, and thank you for the comment. I do think it's great, to hear what other people are thinking, so I'm not just in my own head. Anyway, asteroids then, at this time of the new moon, what is going on? Well, we got this very tight T-square situation coming in, and I want to come down this part first because I really like this side of it. We've got Chiron, who is Chiron's wife. She's a centaur, but also she's got the ability of shape shifting. She's very mystical, very gifted, very sort of magical, understands herbs and healings and vibrations and energies. And, both of them together were really phenomenal in terms of healing. But she is also very concerned with ending suffering. And so we've got this idea of ending suffering, which I've already spoken about really, with Ceres, and, allow the grief to come up. That's great. And also we're coming to the end of a Chiron Mars cycle. So this all really fits in, that there is this ending of suffering coming. Maybe we're letting go of a story that we've been holding on to. I don't know. I'm not living your life, but I'm sure you've got an idea about how you could end your own suffering. And I don't mean in the physical way that Chiron did it, by the way. We've also got Hecate down here. Now, she is a guardian of thresholds and boundaries and crossroads and any kind of doorway between this life, this realm, and other places. She lives in the liminal spaces. So she can go through all these little doorways and see what's there and see what's really going on. She can get to the heart of matter of things. And so she's really there at our transformative moments in our life. And so she's helping people come to terms with death and dying, and also endings. And, death and dying, like I remember, reading tarot cards, for instance, a lot of people, when they see death, they go, oh my God, I'm going to die. And of course, it's not that at all. We're talking about ego death. We're talking about situations naturally coming to an end. And so it's interesting. You've got Chiron and Hecate working together here. They're stressing out the new moon, for sure. There are odds with the new moon, but there's something in the message here saying it's time. It's time to let something go so that you can relax. And maybe in that grief, maybe in the recognition of the journey you've been on, there is this like you give over to your body, and your body does the healing. I think we're very gifted in many ways of being able to talk our way out of, I've dealt with that. Yeah, it was a really painful thing, blah, blah. And we say one thing, but our body remembers actually the pain. The body records it. It's caught in our physiology, and lots of people talk about fascia release and things like that. So, I think Chiron and Hecate might be saying, like, they might be talking to your body actually and saying, look, it's time. Let's shift to that pain and really let it go. Don't take that with you. They're these magical beings that are about to help you, and they're in a square, so it's dynamic. I don't think this is something we can maybe resist. I think this is an energy that is like you're leaning against an open door, and it's going to transform you, but it could be a bit shocking. There could be a big release. Now, there's also Tantalus here, which is interesting. And this came into our conversation last night in the Hangout. Tantalus is known for revealing too many of the gods' secrets, and he was tortured as punishment. He was kept in this pool of water that kept sinking, the water kept disappearing. So he couldn't actually get a glass of water and satiate his thirst. And there was also some beautiful fruit hanging above that he couldn't reach. And so he was punished. Sorry to laugh and giggle, but he was punished for his disloyalty, for revealing secrets. And he was like starved of nourishment. And so that's also interesting, because where are you torturing yourself? Where have you kept yourself out of the reach of comfort, because you have been like keeping stuff in, or not fully addressing things, like secret things. So to me, there's a bit of a symbolism there. So maybe there is a huge argument now that it's time to just let go and step away and step to the side. It's an opening, and on the other side, this is also interesting. We've got Pramsius, which is a Lithuanian god of primordial existence. I think Pramsius is also featured in a game. So if you're a gamer, you might actually know the character Pramsius. The idea of Pramsius is Pramsius understands time and is really strong on timing and orders divine timing and makes a decision. And that is it. And then we've got Hera, who she's a goddess of marriage, also known as Juno. She's absolutely all about commitment. However, she gets really upset when people who she's committed to are not equally committed. I'm very, very jealous. And to be fair, Jupiter did do her nut in, because he had lots of extramarital affairs and had lots of children behind the scenes. And she was very unforgiving towards anyone that kind of got in her way, even if it's not their fault, like the children, the illegitimate children of Jupiter, for instance. And she's very unforgiving, puts tests on people, kind of like enough is enough. And so Hera, at the heart of that is this spurned lover, is somebody who feels rejected and also who's in a situation of judgment, is like, I judge this as bad, I judge that as bad. And so Pramsius and Hera together, really what I'm getting is this kind of final judgment idea, like this, are you judging yourself? Are you feeling judged? Are you judging other people right now? So whatever this new moon is coming in, and with the stories coming in right now and going on for the next couple of weeks, I think it's going to take us back to a time when we have felt judged or been judging a lot, a time where it felt like everything was on the line. And it's also inviting us to walk through a mystical doorway and to manage the ending of an identity so that you can rest in comfort, allow your body to fully let go, maybe release those grief patterns or whatever knots you've got in your body, you can actually let them go. Chiron and Mars at the end of Aries are absolutely saying, okay, we've done this now, we've identified it. Next time we look at this pattern, we're going to be quieter about it, more practical and more embodied about it. And at the same time, there is a speeding up. Interestingly, it appears that time is speeding up. Well, maybe we'll realize that time's bullshit anyway. I don't know. Sorry, my views on things are a little bit out of sync with everybody else's ideas. I do think time is a concept that is holding our reality together. Can't prove it, obviously, but with Mercury and Uranus coming into Gemini, having their first conjunction 80 years, I do think time is going to appear to run away with ourselves. Things are speeding up. So this new moon, how can you get back in your body? How can you release everything, like have a really big release? I mean, I'm talking not just having a big old poo, like a big emotional poo for the past, but this is like, okay, how can it be like a primordial final decision time poo where it all comes out and that's it? You feel free, you feel lighter, your body feels like it can move again. It's not tied up in knots, so that you are relaxed, relieved, and also that you're ready to move forwards, looking forwards and seeing what's going on. So they are my thoughts for this new moon. I didn't say it would necessarily make sense and it is a bit bonkers at times, but I hope that was helpful for you. Like I say, it's lasting for a couple of weeks. If you've got anything around the end of the earth signs and at the beginning of the air signs, it's going to really resonate with you. So for instance, if you've got planets, when you look at your birth chart, if you've got things at the end of Virgo, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. And also if you've got things at the beginning of air, so Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. In particular, Libra and Aquarius and Capricorn and Taurus are really going to be feeling this really strongly coming in. So I'm going to leave that there. If you would like to join some of my conversations in my Hangouts every couple of weeks and also have extra forecasts, then please do feel free to join me and all of the other people in my community. You can go and have a look at the QR code above. Or you can type it into your device. It's www.school.com. That's skool.com/feelgoodastrology. If you would like me to pay this level of attention to your actual chart and you want me to work with you in person, so we really get a rich conversation about all the myths and mythology that you've been holding on to, your stories, to help you unpick and unpack, then please do get in touch. You can book a reading with me. Just go to my Calendly. The address is below. Or if you want to explore astrology from a much deeper perspective, you might want to join my class. I've got a living classroom, and I want to share, I started studying astrology years ago, and this was my manual with the Faculty of Astrological Studies. And it's brilliant. I will say it was great. And it gave me everything I needed when I was first interested in astrology when I was 18. It's a long time I've had this, and it's probably been updated a lot since then. But in my classroom, every week we look at something new. And so for the first 12 weeks of this year, we looked at one sign every week in a classroom all together, chatting about it, looking at the myth, the symbol, our own experiences of it. And then every Thursdays, we would look at that symbol within our chart and see, how are we living Aries? How are we living Taurus? How are we living the ruling planet of these signs? And so we got a really good group understanding of what these living symbols mean to us. So we're walking our astrology all the time. At the moment, currently, we're going through the houses. We've just completed or about to complete. I'm about to record another session tonight with my class. But right now we're on the second house. And so tonight, this is the interactive one. We've already learned about the second house and had a really strong discussion around it. Tonight, we're going to be looking at how the second house comes into our chart, what happens in a second house perfection year, where our second house rulers are, what's transiting through our second house, when difficult transits have gone through our second house. So it's so involved. Now, if that sounds like the kind of learning you would like, to me, it follows on from what you learn if you're studying astrology. Whether you're really experienced in astrology or new to astrology, these classes are really accessible and we've got a really nice vibe. So if you want to join us, sign up, go to my school community. So it's school.com/feelgoodastrology, and then just join with the premium. Currently, it's $22 a month. I'm actually putting it up next Monday, which is the 18th. That's actually the day of Mercury and Uranus coming together. Now, it's going to go up to $55 a month. In that, you still get a minimum of 10 sessions every month. I've run about 20 sessions in total across different time zones. So, there's always an opportunity. There's always a replay. It works out very good value for money. But if whatever you join at, that's the price you pay for the time you're in membership. So if you've been thinking about it for a while and you'd like to support the channel, then join at $22 right now or before Monday, and you'll secure that price. It won't go up. It will stay at $22. And if you miss that, it'll still be good value at $55, but you might as well save yourself $30. Each month. So you're very welcome to join. And there's replays for things. So you won't have lost the first 2 episodes, So if that sounds like something that you would like to do and learn with other people in a really supportive group, I will say it's very female and it's wonderful. We've got some really great people from all over the world. Then just join. I'd love to have you aboard. So anyway, have a beautiful new moon and maybe catch you in class or maybe catch you in the community. But however you're doing this, go easy on yourself. There are some patterns that are coming up in the body and they're coming up to be realized and they're coming up to be released. So lots of love, happy releasing, and speak soon. Bye for now.